Welcome back to the MOOC course on research writing. My name is Aradhana Malik and I am helping you with this course. And we've discussed various things on research writing, and we've talked about what it means to write a manuscript, and we had in the previous lecture we talked about academic integrity, which is honesty in the work that you do, and how do you ensure that, or what kinds of problems can crop up. Now what leads directly from a need to be honest in your work is referencing. So in this lecture we are going to talk about using and acknowledging sources. So by now you must have understood, or you must have developed an appreciation for why we need to acknowledge the sources, why we need to give due credit where it is due, why we need to acknowledge the work of created by someone. Now in this class we are going to talk about how you use and acknowledge the sources of information. So let's see what we have here for you. Okay, some points of confusion. Now again, when we are talking about acknowledging sources, when we are talking about using sources of information, many times we are confused as to what we should do. This information is again from the online writing lab put up by Purdue University, USA. Now agreeing with the material that someone else wrote does not make it your own. Many times what we do is we say, yes, I agree that such and such fact should be in a such and such manner, and so just because you use the words I agree, that does not mean that it is your own work. Then rearranging words from someone else's prose does not change the fact that it is not your own work. We saw that when we saw an example on patch writing in the previous lecture. So that is rearrangement of words. Writing a paper that consists of numerous quotations strung together does not qualify as one's own work. The fact that there are quotation marks and citations is not a substitute for the requirement that a piece of work is to be a product of the writer's own mind. You must learn to think critically, you must learn to ask the question why, you must learn to delve deep into whatever it is that you are doing, and ask yourself, why am I reading this? What is the new thing, or what is the new piece of information, new knowledge that is coming out of whatever I am reading? And whatever you see, the patterns that you see, they may be similar to the patterns that others have seen, but you must learn to develop, you must keep digging till whatever you are observing, till whatever you are finding out is, or till the questions emerging become different, and then you must go and answer those questions. That's how your gaps emerge. We try and find out what people have said, and we keep wondering why they've not said something else, and that's how your questions come up. So stringing together quotations, agreeing with someone else's work, writing, rearranging words does not make it your own work. Now when do you not need to give credit? When we are talking about referencing, when do you not need to give credit to somebody else's work? Writing your own lived experiences, your own observations and insights, your own thoughts and your own conclusions about a subject will mean that you don't need to, whenever you are writing about these things, you don't need to give credit. So if you've personally gone and collected first hand information, primary data, or you have developed a particular insight from whatever you have experimented with and analyzed and then come up with, then you don't need to give credit. When you are writing up your own results obtained through experiments that you have conducted in your laboratory or in the field, so these are your results, this is first hand information, this is something that you know, so that time you don't need to give credit to someone else, you only need to acknowledge your own work. When you use your own artwork, digital photographs, video, audio, etc. But again, when do you not need to give credit? When you are using common knowledge, things like folklore, common sense observations, myths, urban legends and historical events, but not historical documents. For example, when you are saying that India gained its independence on the 15th of August 1947, well known fact, but the independence, the Declaration of Independence, the document is something that you will need to quote. So, if you draw a line from the Declaration of Independence, then you will need to quote it. But if you say, if you just make a statement that India gained its independence in 1947 or on the 15th of August 1947, then you don't need to give credit, because it is a commonly known fact. Then common sense observations. Ice melts in the summer, or drinking hot fluids helps soothe a sore throat. These are common sense observations. When you are feeling cold, you must wrap yourself up, or being next to a smoker may cause cough in some people. Now, these are common sense observations. You don't need to give credit, because people know about it. Okay. So, these are the things that you don't need to give credit for. Or maybe you are writing a horror story, and you are referring to a building that is known for for people claim to have seen ghosts in that building. Now, I don't believe in ghosts, but anyway. So, you are writing about a particular building where people have seen ghosts. Again, it is a myth, it is a folklore that don't go near that. There is a jungle, there are beasts, there are ghosts. So, fine. And when you are writing about such things that people know about, or people keep talking about, or the local culture believes, or the local community believes in, then you don't need to give credit, because those people believe in it. People in that context would know about it, okay, or within that community would know about it. Then, when you are using generally accepted facts, like I told you, pollution is bad for the environment, including facts that are accepted within particular discourse communities. For example, in physics, metals are better conductor of heat and electricity than wood. It is a generally accepted fact. Now, in communication studies, I am a student of communication. So, in communication studies, we say that the utterance is a unit of communication. Now, that is something that people who have studied the philosophy of communication would know. Somebody outside that academic community, or the community of communication scholars or students, would probably not be able to relate to what I am saying. So, within that community, if you are talking about it, then you don't need to always give the reference, but do have the reference ready if you are writing a paper for audiences outside, or for journals outside of the communication journals, for example. Now, what is common knowledge? If you find the same information unreferenced in at least 5 credible sources, then you can safely say that it is common knowledge. If you think the information you are presenting is something your readers will already know, or something that a person could easily find in general reference sources, for example, encyclopedias, dictionaries, etc., then you can safely consider it as common knowledge. But when in doubt, always cite. If the citation turns out to be unnecessary, your teacher or editor will tell you. The editor of the journal will say this citation is not necessary. But to be on the safe side, use as many references as possible. The way I was taught was that at the end of your PhD, you must be able to say, my name is Aradhana Malik, in brackets, the name of my parents and the year of my birth. It is not my fault that I am called Aradhana Malik, it is somebody else's fault. So, that is the stage that you get to when referencing. So, till I am able to build knowledge or information myself, I very respectfully, very humbly acknowledge the creators of the information that I am using for my work. When do you need to give credit? Words, when you use words or ideas presented in a magazine, book, newspaper, song, TV program, movie, web page, computer program, etc. Information that you gain through interviewing or conversing with another person face to face, over the phone, or in writing. When you copy the exact words or a unique phrase, always use quotation marks. So, something that you have been personally involved in, but when it involves another person, then even then you need to give credit to that conversation. Personal, you must have seen in some slides, I have written personal correspondence with so and so professor. Okay. when you reprint any diagrams, illustrations, charts, pictures or other visual materials. When you reuse or repost any electronically available media, including images, audio, video or other media. You must have seen that in all my slides, almost all my slides, I have something here. You see, Purdue OWL. Now, this is reference. It's not, I understand this, I believe in this. You might find this information unreferenced in other sources. I have taken the words verbatim because I think that Purdue OWL has done a fabulous job. So, I have just taken those words from there, I have put them here. I haven't tried to rearrange the words because this is as crisp as it gets. So, I am citing the appropriate reference, very respectfully acknowledging the hard work that has gone into creating this reference, and I am sharing it with public, and this is even though this is a product of somebody else's work, it is freely available on the internet. Even then I am at least referring to the site or the organization that has created this work. Okay. Bottom line, reference any words, ideas or any productions that originate outside of you. If you haven't done it, please cite the name of the person and the year in which it was created. That will always hold you in good stead. We have a school of intellectual property law in IIT Kharagpur, believe it or not, and this school is number 2 in the country at this point. So, we realize how important it is to protect the intellectual property, the creations, intellectual creations of someone other than you. If you do it for someone else, others will do it for you. So, when you are in a position to create knowledge, people will start citing you, people will start, it's mutual. Again, you don't know who will cite you, but then the hope is that when you start creating something and people start using it, even if it's freely available, they will acknowledge, they will respectfully acknowledge and give you credit for the work that you have done. Okay. Now, how do you decide whether to quote, paraphrase or summarize? You must quote only when, this is from a book by Axelrod and Cooper, this is a book that I used for my PhD work. Quote only when the wording of the source is particularly memorable or vivid or expresses a point so well that you cannot improve it without destroying the meaning. So, it's crisp, it's direct, it is useful and it's to the point. The words of reliable and respected authorities would lend support to your position. So, it is been said by somebody. Now, if I were to talk about say strategy in the automotive sector, I wouldn't be able to say it better than Mr. Ratan Tata himself, okay, because he is the authority, he has been doing it for decades. So, he is a practical man, and so if I were to cite his words, I wouldn't be able to put his words, whatever he said, in my own words and present them. He is the authority, practical authority on this. So, I am not going to quote any academic, due respect to all my fellow professors, because but then from the industry, he is one person who knows about this. Okay. So, okay, you wish to highlight the author's opinions. So, you are talking about what the author has said, specifically you are referring to the author. Many times you can quote the author. You wish to cite an author whose opinions challenge or vary greatly from those of other experts. You may have two experts who are or two authors whose opinions are starkly different, and in describing these two extremes, you are able to build a case for one or the other extreme or for a middle ground. At that point, you can quote both these authors and say, I don't believe A fully and I don't fully agree with B, I believe in a totally different stream of thought. And that is when quoting people can really help. Some special concerns in quotations: underlining or italicizing for emphasis. Now, whether you underline or italicize will depend on the style that you use for referencing. Now, in order to publish, we have different standard styles. We have the American Psychological Association style, which is commonly followed by people in the social sciences and to some extent in the humanities also. Then we have the modern language association style, we have the Harvard style of referencing. For engineering disciplines, we have the IEEE style. So, we have various standard styles, but the referencing style will depend on one, what your, if you're writing a dissertation, then your institute or university will prescribe a specific style. So, they will tell you where to capitalize, how to underline, how to emphasize, etc. And then when you are writing for a journal, the journal, every journal will have its own style of referencing. It's tweaked, a little bit tweaked from the standard accepted styles. So, you must go to the journal and the concerned journal and find out. To my knowledge, the last time I checked, there were over 1,800 styles of referencing in journals all over the world. So, that is the diversity. So, I will not go into any particular style. Now, what I will do here is tell you how or what to look for when you are referencing, okay, or what to pay attention to. Using ellipsis marks for omissions. Now, if you omit a word, you must have seen in some of my previous slides also, when I refer to somebody or something, I use square brackets and I use these 3 dots. Now, 3 dots means that you have taken a paragraph, but you have chosen to take only 2 sentences from maybe a 4-sentence paragraph. So, wherever you want to compress the information that you have taken, you do not want to lose the flavor, and you do not also want to include the unnecessary portion. So, what do? You just put the ellipses in either brackets or in square brackets, depending on the style that you are following. Using brackets for insertions or changes, again when we talk about brackets, we are talking about the square brackets. I am using these very commonly used terms. These brackets are known as parentheses, and so let me show you. Now, what we do here is, e.g., for example, e.g. stands for exempli gratia. Okay. So, you do this. So, you have omitted the QRST. So, you have omitted that portion here. Okay, and so you use these ellipses. This means that this portion does not contain the information that you were going to, or that was there. So, in the original text, maybe QRST was there, you do not want to include it. So, you have decided to get rid of it. Now, if you want to insert something, then again you use brackets, but the style, the type of brackets that you use will depend on the journal that you are referring to, or the standard practice used in your institute or university, wherever you are studying or wherever you are doing your work. Now, integrating quotations. When we talk about integrating quotations, we are talking about using quotations in the middle of your text, for example, in various ways. Now, when we talk about integrating quotations in text, what you can do is you can do this. Okay. So, for example, this can happen in the middle of text also, and again whether you capitalize or not, how much you do, what you quote will depend on the rules of the journal that you publish in. When we use block quotations, what we do is that according to the APA style, if your quotations run into more than 2 physical lines, you are expected to indent them from both sides, use a slightly different sized font or not. occasionally it varies, and then make them stand out. So, you must have seen what happens is, I will just show you what this is like. So, when we talk about block quotations, if for example, I will just fit this here, let me show you. Yeah, okay. So, what you do is, you take this, and here it is very difficult to indent it. So, I will just physically do this. What you do is, sorry, I am not able to. So, you create a space on the left side. Let me see if this works. It does not. Some problem with the automation on this slide. Okay. And so, you reduce the size here also. This does not allow. Let me show you what this can look like on a Word document. This will make more sense if I show it to you on a Word document. 1 minute. Okay. So, we have it here. You are working in Word. And we want to view the ruler. So, what we do is, we have this is there, and let us assume this is a regular paragraph. And you want to have a longish sort of citation here. So, if this is in say 1.5 line spacing, what you will do here is, you will take this, you will reduce the spacing. Again, this is as per APA format. Now, other formats will tell you what to do. They will tell you to do this differently. So, you must follow the format that you are following. So, maybe that is 1.5 lines. You make this single, you indent it from the side. So, you indent this, you make it smaller, you crush it, and you reduce the size. You must have seen these block citations. Anyway, I will not spend too much time on this. So, that is how you have these block citations. Now, block quotations. Now, this depends on the referencing style that you are using. Now, checklist for citations, you will have in-text citations, you will have end of text references, you will have references to books, you will have references to periodicals, electronic sources, other sources. Then in the in-text citations, you will have authors named in the signal phrase. Signal phrase is the first sentence. So, you say according to Malik 1995, or Malik 1995 found out, or you say this was found out, and in brackets you say Malik 1995. So, signal phrase is when you cite the author's name right in the beginning of the sentence. So, how you write it will depend on the method prescribed by the journal or your standard that you are following. Author named in a parenthesis. So, instead of saying Malik 1995, you will say okay, you will say whatever you have to say, and in parentheses you will say Malik comma 1995, and that happens somewhere in the middle of the text. Then you could have two authors, say Malik and Roy 2017, or you could have 3 to 5 authors. So, Malik, Roy and Das, and Malik, Roy, Das and Mahapatra, and then depending on where you are, what kind of referencing style you are following. Some will say okay, after 3 authors you say et al, et dot al dot, and so that means that there is more to come. So, the way you say it is Malik and Associates, and so on. So, in the year 2015. So, when you are talking about this presentation, or when you are talking about your research in a conference, you do not say Malik et al, you say Malik and Associates. So that means that the first author is Malik and the rest are the other people who have helped with the research. 6 or more authors, again it just depends on how you reference it, the organization as an author. So standard styles will be prescribed for these things. Unknown authors, then you would have 2 or more authors with the same last name. So say Das and Das, Roy and Roy, etc. So how do you do this? Okay, 2 or more sources within the same parentheses. So how do you reference 2 or more sources? Many times people say, okay, many styles prescribe the sources to be listed chronologically, which means the source that appeared first in that was published first should appear first. Other styles say that maybe you should do them alphabetically. That makes it for easy reading, so you have to follow that standard style. Specific parts of a source, you are not citing the whole source, you are only citing say one chapter in a book. Now the book has been written by a person, you are referring to one chapter. You would have email and other personal communication, you would have edited volumes of books. I mean, the list is endless. How do you cite email? The World Wide Website, www is World Wide Web. And then in books you would have one author books, 2 or more author books, organization as an author, unknown authors. When we say organization as an author, maybe Government of India publication, United Nations publication, so these are organizations. Then you could have edited volumes where the editors, you have to put in the editor's name and the names of the people who wrote specific chapters. Then selection in a book with an editor, translations. Many times we've referred to a lot of books that were Vygotsky's books, for example. So Vygotsky's books were they've been translated into English, and we've used those books when we study communication. So edition other than the first, one volume of a multi-volume work, encyclopedias, etc. Article in a reference work or handbooks will have more than one volume. Then republication, many times the same book is republished with minor changes. So you have to see government documents, 2 or more works by the same authors. Then periodicals, journals, articles in a journal paginated by volume, article in a journal paginated by issue. Many times in one volume you will see that a journal, the volume refers to the year, typically the years of publication. Issue refers to the number of publications within a year. So if a journal produces say 3 or 4 journals, they bring out an issue every quarter. So it will be volume 10, issue 3, which means that this is the 10th year of publication, and the journal was probably published somewhere in September. So that would be volume 3 typically. Then article and the numbers, sometimes in the volume the numbers continue from, they start with volume 1, issue 1 of a particular volume starts with page 1 and the page numbers continue on to the following issues. And in other journals you will see that the page numbers start. The idea to, so again the articles in magazines, articles in newspapers, editorials or letter to the editor, unsigned articles, you don't know who the author is, reviews and published interviews, 2 or more works by the same author in the same year. Then you have electronic sources, you have the World Wide Website, you have FTP, Telnet, Gopher sites, you have listserv messages, you have newsgroup messages, you have emails, you have synchronous communication, MUDs, MOs, then you have material from a CD-ROM database, you have material from an information service or online database, you have material from a database accessed via the web, you have a software or computer program, etc. So you have other sources, you have technical or research reports and working papers, you have papers presented at meetings or symposia, you have unpublished papers, you have dissertations published and unpublished, you have poster sessions, you have films, videotapes, television programs, single episode programs, so audio recordings, photographs, etc. And so in all of these sources, now the idea of going through this whole list is to make sure you know the variety of sources that are available. Now when you cite something, please make sure that you cite it in a way that the reader is able to find the source of information. When we cite sources that are dynamic, which means sources that are constantly or that are prone to change, which means the internet sources, it is always a good idea, and this will be prescribed by the standard that you use. It is a good idea to cite the date on which you accessed the source and drew that information. So, you say accessed on or retrieved on such and such date. The term will be of course suggested to you by the standard that you use, so that the reader knows that, one, it gives credibility, two, it helps the reader go to the source. That is how we do our literature review. You go to the reference, and if you have access to a database that contains that reference, you are able to pull out the references. Many times we do not read papers so much as we read the references, and we take material from the reference lists for our work. So, that is why your references must be complete, must be accurate. You know, you make a tiny mistake in the volume or issue number or the page number, and everything goes haywire. There are standard formats, what to italicize in references, where to underline, where to put quotation marks, what to capitalize. These things help the reader immediately identify what you are talking about. So, it is very, very important that when you are writing your references, you must follow the standard formats prescribed. One, it helps the reader identify things. Two, if you do not do what is prescribed, the chances of your article being rejected go up. So, that is all we have time for in this lecture. We will start winding up the discussion on research writing in the upcoming classes. Thank you very much for listening.